What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Too Good for Theaters video. Today we're going to be breaking down the offensive signings the New England Patriots have made on the first day of free agency here, signing Morgan Moses, Mack Hollins, as well as Joshua Dobbs. So let's get right into it. Before we get into the signings here, a little bit of breaking news. The Patriots have cut longtime center David Andrews, an offensive captain for you. And this really is a weird move by the New England Patriots. Like, their offensive line is just not in a good place right now. So why get rid of one of your better offensive linemen? And not only that, someone who has been a kind of cornerstone for your franchise here along that offensive line, one of your leaders and offensive captain these past couple of seasons, in David Andrews. And he's one of the last remaining players on this roster who had actually been a part of those championship teams. And over these past 2 days, 3 players of those championship DNAs had actually left this franchise, that being David Andrews, of course, Jonathan Jones, and Deatrich Wise. So there's only one player left who was actually on that 2018 Super Bowl winning team, and that is Joe Cardona. And it's weird because Mike Vrabel keeps preaching about trying to build a culture in this offseason, and maybe they're just trying to completely eliminate the culture before Mike Vrabel being a part of that. But I mean, when you talk about a culture guy, David Andrews is the prototype of being that culture guy. You know, he's an offensive captain for you. Even when the team was struggling, he was always the first to the microphone, taking the blame, taking accountability, understanding the situation that the franchise was in. And he took full part. He took it in stride. He took criticism for the team. And he really just was one of those better leaders for you. I know that he was loved by his teammates. And it's just shown by the interactions, even some of these videos that the social media team has kind of posted out there of how good of a teammate he was. And when he was on the field, he was productive. So this is a little bit of a questionable move. I understand he hasn't been healthy of late. And even from a financial sense, the New England Patriots aren't saving a ton of money here by cutting David Andrews. I believe at most they're saving around like $6 million, if that. And it's weird because of the timing as well. Like, why are you cutting him this early into the offseason before the NFL draft? Maybe it's because you're trying to lure more free agents with an attractive opening at the center spot for you, but there's not a ton of interior lineman free agent centers left, and especially how some of the bigger names of that group have already been signed here. I don't think you necessarily have to lure people coming here. If you just offer a decent amount of money, I'm sure that they would be willing to come here, especially given the fact that it's probably not the elite talent, so they're just trying to get paid and maybe try and get themselves into a workload on an NFL team. But it's just weird. You would think that they would let him come to OTAs or minicamp at least to try and prove that he can remain healthy and still be a part of this team. So it is a questionable move here by Mike Vrabel, Elliott Wolf, and the front office, of the timing especially. So it really just does suck here. Obviously, it's kind of an end of an era. And it sucks for David Andrews because he's just been such a good Patriot throughout his career. He's been productive. And these last few years really have hindered him, just his health and his body breaking down. And I'm sure that he was working his ass off during this offseason to try to come back. And for this to really happen, it's got to be a gut blow. And hopefully he still has something left in the tank. If he wants to, he can go to another franchise, hopefully a winning franchise, and try and win a little bit more here. But if he does retire, it is a little bit of a sad ending for him. But, you know, not every career can walk off into the sunset. But David Andrews, released by your Patriots here, and it really is just a move that sucks. Moving on to a positive note here, the New England Patriots signed offensive lineman Morgan Moses to a 3-year, $24 million contract that could potentially go up to $28 million. And this was a move that needed to be made. Not this move in particular, but the Patriots had to address the offensive line in free agency somewhere. Of course, they made it well known that they were going to heavily pursue Ronnie Stanley, but he never even hits the open market. So they do end up signing a veteran right tackle, and I say right tackle because they better keep him at right tackle. That is his position. He is not a left tackle. He's only played 200 some odd snaps at left tackle throughout his career. And enough of these moving these right tackles to left tackle experiments. But this was one of the more experienced linemen in this free agency class. And you honestly just need bodies, durable bodies, to help protect Drake May so you don't hamper his development behind a bad offensive line like you did last season, even though I would say that Drake May performed very well considering the circumstances. And Morgan Moses really had just been one of the more durable tackles throughout his career. You talk about a culture guy. This is a guy who's played through injuries for teams, and he is a really good teammate for most of his career here in Baltimore. He was spoken very highly of. Last season with the Jets, even through all that situation, he still ended up playing 14 games and played through a little bit of injuries there. So it speaks highly of his football character. He's just a professional, and that's something that the Patriots desperately need in this room too. I mean, you have a ton of young linemen on this squad, and especially with David Andrews now departed, you kind of need one of those leaders to step up there. And between that right side of Morgan Moses and Michael Onwenu, I actually feel pretty solid about the right side. However, I do view this as more of a Band-Aid option for you. Obviously, Morgan Moses is not going to be the future right tackle of your franchise for the next 5 years. He is signed to a 3-year deal, which is a little surprising. I thought that this would be a 1-2-year deal at most. However, you do have some guys behind him like Caden Wallace, hopefully who's going to be able to develop under him. Or maybe if you're not feeling that great about Caden Wallace, or you want to move him over the left tackle for God knows why, you can address this area in the draft coming up here. So moving over to Morgan Moses' stats here. In 2024, with the New York Jets, he played 14 games. He had an offensive grade of 63.3, a running grade of 60.6, and a pass block grade of 69.2. He took 256 run block snaps compared to 467 pass protection snaps. And the kind of stats that he gave up, he allowed 16 pressures, 12 hurries, 2 QB hits, 2 sacks, and 8 penalties. And you compare that to Demontre Jacobs for the Patriots, and that's a clear upgrade, obviously. And hopefully Drake May is not going to have to worry so much about getting pressured on that right side as well. And I also kind of wanted to take a look at Morgan Moses' career in terms of running style or in terms of run blocking style. And he's actually played in more gap schemes, or at least taken more career snaps in a gap scheme compared to a zone scheme, which is good, obviously, because Josh McDaniels is more so known for that run scheming of gap scheme instead of zone scheme. Of course, Morgan Moses, he's been to a number of franchises throughout his career. He can play in both, but he has taken the majority of his snaps from a gap scheme. So I don't believe that this offense should be too difficult for him to pick up. And hopefully he's just going to be able to have that production that he's had these past couple seasons here in New England. But speaking of production, just 2 years ago in 2023, he played 16 games for the Baltimore Ravens, and he had an overall grade of 80.4, a run block grade of 80.3, and a pass block grade of 77. And you can really see he did kind of fall off just a little bit this last season with the Jets. However, with that turmoil and him getting older, it's really kind of expected here. So you might not be getting the same production as Morgan Moses has produced throughout his entire career, but you're going to get better production than you had last season, and that's just desperately needed with this team, especially when Drake May is hoping to take that next step, and you just have to shore up that line for him to really make it possible for him to take that next leap. Speaking of developing Drake May, however, the New England Patriots give him some more weapons here in signing wide receiver Mack Hollins to a 2-year, $8.4 million contract. I believe there is an opt-out for the Patriots after 1 year, so who knows if he's going to play both seasons of this contract here with the Patriots. But obvious ties to the coaching staff here for Mack Hollins. Spent the 2022 campaign under Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas, so he's going to know this playbook. He's going to be familiar with the offense. And considering the fact that he played pretty well last year in Buffalo, obviously had a pretty solid rapport with Josh Allen there. Hopefully this is something that he can really match his play style with Drake May. Of course, Drake May kind of plays pretty similar to Josh Allen here, and a lot of comparisons have kind of been made between the two. So if Mack Hollins does succeed with Josh Allen, of course, he's going to be given every chance here to succeed with Drake May. But I think that this is just a solid signing by the Patriots. You give Drake May another weapon. Maybe not a 1, maybe not even a 2, but just another good receiver to have, a wide receiver 3. And he kind of fills that role of that prototypical X receiver, something that the Patriots really haven't had last season, with Kayshon Boutte kind of playing that role. So you get that big-bodied receiver on the outside, 6'4", 221 pounds, and hopefully that's going to be the area where he's most productive with this Patriots offense, because that's something that this offense really does not have on the roster right now. And hopefully Mack Hollins will be able to bring that experience into that wide receiver room. Of course, last season, a lot of the young guys showing a lot of immaturity speaking out against the coaching staff in terms of stuff like that. Hopefully, Mack Hollins and Kendrick Bourne is going to be able to kind of settle that room down, be veterans, and really teach these young guys how to be NFL pro receivers in terms of how to behave and stuff like that, because last year was strictly unacceptable. And between Jalen Reagor and KJ Osborne, they really did not do a good job of leading by example for these young Patriots receivers here. But taking a look at Mack Hollins' grades in 2024 last season, he played in 20 games, of course, the Bills making it all the way to the conference championship game. He had an offensive grade of 61.6, a receiving grade of 63.8, and a run block grade of 48.9. He was targeted 56 times, hauled in 36 receptions for a reception rate of 64.3%. He had 482 yards. He averaged around 13.4 yards per reception. He had 6 touchdowns. He was 7 of 12 on contested catches, 58%, and he only had 1 drop there. And taking a look where he was kind of used in that Buffalo offense, mainly as an X receiver being out wide, 467 snaps compared to 269 slot snaps. And they actually used him a little bit on the inline, of course, being a big body type of guy. He took 110 snaps off the inline line of scrimmage there. So that might be something that the Patriots might want to implement there if they found that Mack Hollins had success in those type of formations. But more closely here, take a look at his 2022 campaign under Josh McDaniels. He was targeted 89 times for 57 receptions for a reception rate of 64%. He had 690 yards, around 12.1 yards per reception, 4 touchdowns, 6 of 15 on contested catches, and he had 4 drops, around a 6% drop rate. But taking a look at his snaps by alignment, he was strictly more so an X receiver under Josh McDaniels' offense, playing out wide 869 times compared to 146 slot snaps. So, as expected, big body individual. Josh McDaniels is probably going to use him more so on the out boundaries, being that X receiver. However, I do think that they should implement some more schemes to get Mack Hollins either in the slot as a big slot guy, or even use him as an inline type of receiver like Buffalo did if they found that he had success in those formations here. But solid signing here by the Patriots. He's not going to be a number 1 wide receiver, but hopefully he's going to be able to match his production with Buffalo and with Vegas here in New England. And he has been a serviceable wide receiver throughout his career, so I see no issues with him coming in and just playing his role here with the Patriots. The New England Patriots have also signed quarterback Josh Dobbs to a tier $8 million contract, with around 3.8 of that $8 million being in guaranteed money here. However, Joshua Dobbs does not have the most highlighted resume, I would say, in the NFL. I would say the highlight is probably his 13 games in the 2023 campaign. And he spent a little bit of time with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. I believe he had a 2-game sample size there under Vrabel. And that might be why that he was signed to this Patriots roster. Maybe Vrabel liked him in those positions. And hopefully he can kind of be that veteran quarterback mentor that Jacoby Brissett was for Drake May last year and kind of slide into that number 2 role in particular. But taking a look at his stats, I'll take a look at his 2023 campaign where he played 13 games. He had an offensive grade of 65.9, a pass grade of 59.9, and a really solid rushing grade of 82.2. He threw the ball 417 times, came down with a total of 262 completions for a completion percentage of 62.8. He had basically around 2,500 yards. He averaged around 6 yards per attempt. He had 13 touchdowns through 10 interceptions, and he had a 4.4% turnover-worthy plays. But taking a look at his rushing snaps where he ran the ball 77 times, he wound up with a total of 421 yards. He averaged around 5.5 yards per rushing attempt with 6 touchdowns, and he actually had 15 fumbles on the year. I would assume that a lot of that was also in the pocket and not just strictly from running the football, because that would be a historic rate if that was all based off his scrambles. But like I said before, not the biggest sample size there. Really, I think you're just more so signing him for someone to be solid behind Drake May. And I think that this is a little impactful, more so with Joe Milton, because I don't want to say quote-unquote makes him expendable, because obviously the Patriots, I'm sure, would like to keep Joe Milton. But if teams are going to offer decent compensation in a trade for Joe Milton, I would 100% look into trading Joe Milton to the proper situation, especially if you can get a 4th-round pick, a 5th-round pick. Like, that's a good trade for someone you took in the 6th round of last year. And I think that Joe Milton has done enough to impress some teams on tape, whether it's been the preseason or last season, of course, against the Buffalo Bills there. I think that there's a solid sample size where teams are going to be interested. And I would 100% take a swing on a Joe Milton trade if teams are willing to offer some pretty solid draft compensation. And I think that this gives the Patriots a little bit of leverage as a fallback option to have Josh Dobbs if they were to trade Joe Milton, to have a veteran quarterback to back up Drake May. So take a look into a Joe Milton trade. I would fully encourage the front office to do so. And the signing of Josh Dobbs might mean a little bit more than just him, the player. It might be a little bit of a quote-unquote trade sentence for Joe Milton here. So it's going to be interesting to monitor that situation. And we'll see if the Patriots are able to pull the trigger on a Joe Milton trade this offseason. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the signings as well as the unfortunate release of David Andrews. I'm going to be making some more offseason content as well as some draft content coming up here. So hopefully you stick tuned for that. And once again, thank you so much for watching.